This is the story of the Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there lived a girl named Little Red Riding Hood. She was called that because she loved to wear a hooded cape of red velvet that her grandmother had made for her. One day, her mother said, "Come, Little Red Riding Hood, your poor grandmother is ill. I need you to take this bread and cheese to her. Remember, you must stay on the path and go straight there." Little Red Riding Hood put the bread and cheese in a basket and set off to her grandmother's house. Her grandmother lived on the other side of a nearby wood. As she was going through the wood, Little Red Riding Hood met a wolf. The wolf took one look at Little Red Riding Hood and thought how tasty she looked. But he didn't dare eat her because there were some woodsmen nearby. "Good day, little maid," said the wolf. "Where are you off to on such a fine day?" Little Red Riding Hood, who did not know that it was dangerous to talk to the wolf, said, "I am going to see grandmother. She isn't well, so I am taking her this bread and cheese." "Where does she live?" asked the wolf. "Why, just through the wood under the 3 oak trees," replied Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf thought for a minute and then said, "See how pretty the flowers are about here. I am sure your grandmother would love to see them." Little Red Riding Hood looked at the flowers and thought, "Maybe I should take grandmother a fresh posy. She would be so pleased, and it is early in the day, so I will still get there in good time." "That's a good idea," said Little Red Riding Hood, and she ran from the path to look for flowers to pick. Meanwhile, the wolf ran ahead along the path to grandmother's house under the 3 oak trees and knocked on the door. "Who is there?" asked grandmother. "Little Red Riding Hood," replied the wolf, imitating her voice, "with bread and cheese." "Come in," called out grandmother. "I am too weak to come to the door." The wolf lifted the latch and went inside. He ate grandmother in one mouthful. Then he put on a set of her night clothes and a nightcap, lay down in her bed and drew the curtains so that the room was quite dim. Little Red Riding Hood gathered a lovely posy of flowers and continued on her way to grandmother's house. When she got there, she knocked on the door. A husky voice called out, "Who is there?" "Little Red Riding Hood, with bread and cheese," she replied. "Come in," called the wolf. "I am too weak to come to the door." Little Red Riding Hood lifted the latch and went inside. It was quite dark, but she could see the shape of her grandmother under the bedclothes, her nightcap pulled low over her face. "Put the bread down and come and sit with me," said the wolf. Little Red Riding Hood sat by the bed. She was surprised at how grandmother looked in her nightclothes. "Oh, grandmother, what big ears you have," she said. "All the better to hear you with," was the reply. "Oh, grandmother, what big arms you have," she said. "All the better to hug you with," was the reply. "Oh, grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "All the better to see you with," was the reply. "Oh, grandmother, what big teeth you have," she said. "All the better to eat you with," was the reply. And the wolf leapt out of the bed and began to chase Little Red Riding Hood. Almost too late, Little Red Riding Hood realized that the person in the bed was not her grandmother, but a hungry wolf. She ran across the room and through the door, shouting, "Help, wolf!" as loudly as she could. A woodsman who was chopping logs nearby heard her cry and ran towards the cottage as fast as he could. He grabbed the wolf and made him spit out the poor grandmother, who was a bit frazzled by the whole experience, but still in one piece. The woodsman knocked out the wolf and carried him deep into the forest where he wouldn't bother people any longer. Little Red Riding Hood was very happy to see her grandmother, and she thought to herself, "Never again will I leave the path to run into the woods when my mother has forbidden it." Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother had a nice lunch and a very long chat. The end. For more stories, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.